In the East, the Madonna works through the centers of devotion to her, which are usually related to icons. In the West, it is through statues and places where she is honored. And in the context both of East and West, miracles do happen where Our Lady is honored, using signs and signals that we can pick up and understand according to our culture. It was when still wrestling with the question of the true faith that I came across finally what was the last straw. It was reading about Fatima, and I put the book down and said to myself, if that is true, I can't stay where I am. And so it was to pull towards the Catholic Church, because in that church there was the fullness, and the fullness included also the fullness of the family, which cannot be without the Mother of the Saviour, honoured duly as the Son would wish. And indeed I could see from reading all this material that the Son and the Madonna were always speaking in a Catholic language, and it was presumed that the dogma was that of the Catholic Church. We had nothing of the sort in our Protestant setup. And so, even though it was painful leaving all that was familiar, there was a homecoming. And it was interesting to see that in Fatima she introduced herself eventually as the Lady of the Rosary, and insisted each time on the recitation of the same. And then this unusual showing of her heart and wanting reparation, devotion to be done to the same. And it was clear that one couldn't remain in a situation of being offensive to that Immaculate Heart and be pleasing either to her or to her Son. And therefore one had to go over to where she was honoured. And the Rosary was part and parcel of what she wanted. Indeed, it has come out in recent times in exorcism that the devil hasn't got permission to enter the family where the Rosary is said in the family. And then this specification of 5 consecutive first Saturdays with confession, communion, the Rosary, and 15 minutes of meditation on the mysteries of the Rosary, keeping her company. And things happen when one keeps company to the Blessed Virgin. It is a quiet place, her heart, and the Rosary is like a music or a mantra which goes on while one is thinking about the mysteries of our faith. It is a place, a locus of apartness from the profane, in good company, that of heaven. And if it is not happening in the day is out of order and things are out of proportion and control. And it surprised me how in the Catholic Church there were so many interventions of that same Madonna all over the Catholic world. Each country has its own. Indeed, when eventually ordained, I was involved with 2 places near our monastery where she had intervened, and great churches had been built as a consequence. One, the Tempio della Carità at Seggiano, and the other, the Madonna of Montalcino. She was alive, around, and active, very much so, in the Christian people, and she still is to this day. At La Salette, it was interesting that she was emphasizing things which as Protestants we held dear, honouring the Day of the Lord, not working on it, and not using language which was displeasing to heaven. And some time ago, when Kilnacrot was in difficulty and things were uncertain, she did a little miracle for us with a statue of Fatima, and it was an indication that the Blessed Sacrament was being abused, for the host appeared over her heart, and her eyes were bloodshot eyes, weeping for the abuse of the sacred. And it was an indication that I had to nevertheless be ordained, and it happened eventually in Italy. We do well to listen to the warnings of heaven, and it is interesting that the Church has been told in recent times that, as in the case of France, the slowness of the king to consecrate France to the Sacred Heart was going to lead to unfortunate events politically, and of course the king was himself executed. So too, if we are not going to listen, we are at risk. And it was clearly wanted that the consecration of the whole world by all the bishops should be made, and that was going to lead to a great change, as happened in Portugal when it did happen, when all the bishops of Portugal made that consecration in the early 1930s. It was protected as a country massively afterwards. So the project was there, but are we listening? It did come out that she said this, that eventually the consecration would be made, but that it would be late. But we do have the promise that in the end her Immaculate Heart would triumph, Russia would be converted, and a period of peace would follow for the world. Our Lady appeared also in the Ukraine way before this war, and did say over an abandoned Catholic church actually in that area, Catholic but of Eastern Rite, the Rosary was important, and that one day the Ukraine would be instrumental in the conversion of Russia. What lies ahead? Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre.